I usually say, and I'm going to read off my notes, but today I probably really am because I don't want to miss things. So we're rounding off our lessons here with you guys with more about seeds because they just are the perfect representation of life in general, but especially life in the garden because it's the whole cycle from start to finish. Seeds are still and quiet, but they're also very much alive and aware. So that's why we learned back in September when we did the seed lesson, proper storage. And you guys got that cool fridge right away and set it up and keeping them all organized. And then when we decide what to plant, our goal is creating the perfect environment for them to germinate. Like that's our major focus. So you guys have learned that in the beds. And when we do that, we're considering the soil makeup and the moisture. It's step one always. So when you do your seed trays, you're soaking them before you plant the seeds, and then usually again, and then you know they're gonna get in the flood trays. And then when we've done in the soil, a lot of time we plant, it'll be a little dry, but I know we always make sure we use that peat moss to hold moisture and come back and water them right away. And then the temperature and the season we're thinking about. And that's when getting that calendar that I've made and shared with you guys and Fatima always has up on the fridge. So when we're thinking, like, for instance, like mentioning the, not long beans, winged beans. Mm-hmm. And like, you know, we find a new seed and we get excited, or we see something at the store and we want to grow it. It's good to hold on a minute and think back to the calendar. Also, like your peppers that we planted back in like August, it was late, but because we have the greenhouse, we kept them going and they'll be ready for this next season. Are all of the important things to think about. And then things off your guys' assessment that I wanted to give reminders when we did the seed assessment in December. That was some of that, the direct sowing methods, the pods, and seasons. Oh, also when we're placing things where the sun is. In the bed, what else is in the bed, how they're gonna mature together. But even in the greenhouse, so this time of year, we thought about where they are in the greenhouse. So like I purposely put one of the seeds I sowed, I put it in the far corner where I knew it was gonna get the most sun all day. That's especially important really all year, but this season when the sun is lower and everything's cooler, you want to maximize the amount of sun it gets in a day.
You also want to consider the germination temperatures.
Yeah.
Because I have a seed pack here.
Yes. Yeah.
That says it'll start to germinate at 40 degrees Fahrenheit, but then it does poorly at 75 when you consider the greenhouse. During summertime temps, it ups anywhere from 30 degrees higher. Yeah. And these will not germinate at all.
Yeah. So it's either too cold or too hot. So that's something that's like you'll see on the calendar that now it's time to start planting tomatoes and peppers, and you have the greenhouse for that. So that's perfect. And then with the heating mats in the germination closet, are they adjustable? I didn't remember closely. If they're adjustable, then you can choose to get the right temperature. If you don't have it outside, you don't have it in the greenhouse, that's what that's going to be perfect for. But with that, until or if you get lights, you have to be watching like you do with the microgreens. So like you have your tray on top and you take it off so they can start getting sun. That's growing indoors. So the second it sprouts, it has to come out into the sun, but not like out into the hot full sun. I'm thinking it'll make sense to put them on your racks.
50-50.
So that way they're not getting too hot, like they're not getting direct sun. And sometimes you'll take them in and out, like you'll need a schedule. It's called hardening off. Usually it's when the temperatures are, in this case, it might be too cold. So in there, they were warm. They're in their perfect little environment. And then you take them out into the elements and it shocks them. So you'll actually sometimes just do an hour a day and take them back in. But it's kind of tedious because you don't want them to get leggy. Like they said, you get your fall legs on your microgreens. You don't want that with your garden seedlings. It makes them really weak. So it'll be a process to figure that out.
So what kind of plants is that anyway we're talking about?
In there, what I would do now is start doing peppers and tomatoes.
Oh.
It's too early for the other warm season things because they
Beans
just
and-
grow faster. You could still do like your herbs, your cilantro, your dill, but those do okay with the cooler temperatures. The big things would be the tomatoes, peppers.
So in terms of like optimal conditions, do you want that fan running? Because if we're doing
Yeah.
the fan
Yeah.
running, blowing also.
Yeah, I would have
simultaneously.
a fan on, so that way again when they come outside, they're like, "Ooh, what's that wind?"
It's really about like they're not used to having the full exposure to all the elements,
Yeah.
which is wind, sun, heat, cold. Overnight temperatures can
overnight
get really
especially,
cold.
yeah.
So hardening off means that they're able to handle all of that. So the hardening off process needs to be gradual, and it's like anything else. It's more of a relationship where you're keeping an eye on it and you're in touch with it in such a way to see whether they're responding well or they're starting to get leggy or not, or whether they're laying down, or you could kind of, it's like you're keeping an eye on your baby.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why I think it's a good next step from you guys having experience with the microgreens and the greenhouse seedlings of paying attention to their needs. But yeah, I think it's usually takes about a week. You like increase how long they're outside each day. And you could also transfer them to the greenhouse, like overnight. That way, in the morning, they're getting the sun, but they're still in that more sheltered environment that they were getting used to when they sprouted. That's what I'm thinking for the chambers. How
Did
you
you
will
guys
do it.
plant your tomatoes and peppers from seed directly last year into the beds?
Most of the tomato plants that we got were wild.
Oh, they were volunteers? Okay. So you haven't had the experience of just like throwing the seeds in there and seeing what they'll do?
I
'Cause-
think the peppers, because we
Peppers,
transplanted
yes.
a lot of peppers, and I was really
Like
impressed
Cubanelle.
that they'd come from seed outside.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's
Yeah.
like, I wanted you to sort of cover why it's important to seed them in a germination state
Yes, yeah.
versus direct sowing.
Yeah. That's back to the condition. So germinating them in the grow room, in the little cell, like you guys have been doing, you know that you're controlling the conditions. Where in the garden, especially this time of year, it could rain and freeze overnight and then be 80 the next day, and then you lost your seedling. It's just, or if it makes it, it's already all stressed out and it's going to affect the whole life of the plant.
And the environment
Yeah.
that it's in, the
Yeah.
other plants.
Yeah, then it's sending out those stressors to all the other plants, and so that's what I was saying. When we're planting seeds, we're considering the whole environment that they're in. So also, like how you're saying, the cilantro takes forever. So the peppers, you see, they grow really slow. Tomatoes
yes.
grow faster, but they start off slow, and you want to keep them perfectly, like you did the uppotting with the peppers, giving them enough space, proper temperatures, proper moisture, nutrition. That way when you bring them out to the garden or into the cells, they're strong. So that's also like the new pods you got, them having more space.
Larger pods.
Yeah, and I've done some uppotting also with our seedlings, just wanting to get them bigger and stronger. I did that with the celery. Some of them was a little more tedious. I did it with the broccoli, and I actually took the wrapper off and put them in a bigger, those square ones that you guys have that are bigger.
Yes.
And then some of them I didn't. I just put a little bit of fresh soil in the bottom, put the pot in, the bigger cell, and put fresh soil over the top and around it. And it made a huge difference in its health for getting it out to the garden. So I don't want to create more work for you guys. That's why I'm hoping the big pods will help with things that need to stay in longer. And then also looking like we've been doing, like we were doing yesterday, of when it's been in there too long. And again, it's a stressed plant, and it's usually not worth growing it on. You can also usually plant the same seed next to an older unhealthy seedling, and that fresh seed will grow faster and healthier than that one you might have tried to nurture along than just starting over. Trying to think, there's other things that was making me want to transition. When to decide to transplant things. Should have grabbed a tray this morning, but we can go over there. Grab one.
I have one here.
Okay, we can go over there.
There's some trays. Napa's over there, full tray rather. Napa or the dill.
And you can see the bead anymore.
They're not.
Oh, they're not. They're usually.
And then that's the other. So like when we first got here and you guys had like usually one variety, tons all planted in one bed, and they did surprisingly well because of the amazing worm tea. We did some transplanting, just to experiment, but also show you guys that them having more space was usually better. And here, speaking of conditions and timing, we had started onions in the pods in the greenhouse, and they popped right up. Germination was beautiful, and then they were too moist, maybe a little too warm, I'm not sure, and then they all died. So then we started over, I showed you let's try direct sowing, and they all came up, and then we transplanted them around. So we can see, we'll walk around over there when we go back over there. Because things like onions, they usually grow alone so that they'll fully bulb up. So figuring that out too, of how you want to space things. I know we've done that together with direct sowing, where we kind of purposely placed our radishes half an inch apart, or if we just poured them in, but then we have to go back and thin them.
Thin them out.
So yeah, some more things to figure out. These, number one, we can't even see the dates anymore. I think these were outside in the rain too. Usually in the greenhouse it stays. But for me, first look on these, I'd forget about them. They'd go in the compost. They've been in the cells just too long, and then so the roots start getting impacted. You'll see them sometimes they'll still be healthy enough. If it's got a lot of roots on there and you're pulling out a lot of roots, that's better than this, or if they're all really wrapped up in there. The yellow leaves, the kind of yellowish orange, they just, I think even to an untrained eye, they look pretty stressed out. But now we've seen what they look like healthy also. We've seen them in these cells with big green, very green, healthy looking leaves. So we know these are not. When it has that much stem on it, again, that's good for your microgreens, but for these, it's not.
Considered leggy.
Yeah. And it's just, again, another invitation for stress. Like if we put this in the beds, which we've done sometimes just to see, like, hey, let's plant these seedlings, fill in, see what happens. They usually get eaten right away because they're sending out those signals and something's coming to help them out. And then, yeah, same thing. These outer leaves these would actually probably still do okay. Those are slightly healthier roots. Like you've done where we wanted to get them out and not waste them, and we put them around the trees, and they did well.
Yep.
So you're always allowed to do that forever with gardening experimenting, but
Finland's pretty rugged. And
yeah, but learning to do it right is is best.
A lot of it has to do with the variety too, and whether they're finicky or
Yeah.
babyish. You know, if you need to baby them, like, you know, your legumes are typically kind of very picky. I like to think of them as little, you know, teenagers. And they can't handle as much stress. Fennel is a hardy herb and it can handle the stress, but anything that's more delicate. So I think in terms of germination and understanding, like, when is it most important to really be diligent about germinating from seed and hardening it off in a graduated way. If you're thinking about the summer or the warm season and these fruits are gonna fruit, you know, they're just gonna need a little more support. You're expecting that, so in the winter we're mostly eating greens, leafy greens. They're not as demanding, they don't have a huge phosphorus need, you know, but if you're really trying to start something and have it be healthy enough to endure being transplanted into the garden and go through all of the elements all the way to the point where they can then give life, and that life can be something that you can hold in your hand that has seeds in it. That's when I think it's really important. That's the tomatoes and the peppers, and those are all warm season crops. So we're entering into that stage of the garden, and so the germination lesson is really important right now for that reason, more so than it would have been, I think, for the cool season.
That reminded me too with the seasons is also thinking about how much more time you have. So getting out that calendar, getting out your orders list like we've done with the bok choy, where you had some older ones and you had an order date, and we thought about, you know what, let's get another tray so that way we know we have healthy ones that are gonna, and then looking at the maturity dates on the seed inventory that you have, that definitely comes into play too. That's a huge factor on deciding when and what to sow. So you could say, well, these Napas, I think they take about 55 days. So what month is it? What have the temperatures been looking like? Should we try one more round? Do we have a place to put it in the garden or in the channels? Or should we forget about that and start thinking about what's next? And all of that also reminded me of a little bit of talk of seed saving we wanted to show you guys. Again, deciding when we've harvested enough from the plant and we're ready to move on. And again, this is the perfect season to do it. So speaking of varieties and learning what they can handle, if you save seed from your own garden, you've created the plant and the environment have created the perfect seed for your little microclimate. And when you do that every year, so if you save those peas and you plant them again here, each year they've adapted more and more to your space, and they're gonna do that much better. So it's another activity too. It's another fun activity that you guys could share together. So yeah, let's look at things that are bolting and other reasons besides just the seeds to keep them. Usually we've learned to cut, like this is bolting, especially in the channels when we're trying to be productive. Get rid of the bolting plants. But in the garden now, we know we can think back. How long have we been when did we plant this arugula? And if we have to, and check our calendars. Do a little search on Slack, like today we put in arugula, and it'll probably pop up the day I said we planted it, and go, oh wow, that was back in August. Okay, we've got a lot out of it. It's done now. We can take it out if we have space for it. We can clip it out, leave the roots to
Feed the soil.
or we could choose to leave one or two and let it flower and provide pollen and nectar for beneficials that we want. Because the other thing that's happening in these seasonal transitions and these little weird heat waves we've been getting, we have aphids again. So where did I see?
Fava beans.
On the fava where you were washing them off? It's over there. I think I saw berries and plants. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that's the one that I asked
could decide. Also thinking about the sun again. So if I was gonna leave one to flower, I wanted to make more room to plant more things, but I also wanted to get some flowers for pollinators, potential seeds. I'd leave the ones in these corners. That way you're not shading anything. These are gonna flower. But those flowers, especially these kinds, you might see these little, they kind of look like a cross between a little fly and a little bee, the little hoverflies. The little parasitizing wasps, I think we don't really notice. They're really, really small. But they all like having these flowers around to come gather pollen from. And they parasitize aphids. So these little brown dots, those are aphids that a little tiny wasp came and stuck its, I think it's called the ovipositor in. And then the larvae is going to come out and make those more of those wasps. So that's why we planted flowers around to start with. But now, as we transition and we have kind of free flowers after we got all this harvest from them, we can choose to leave some of those too. And then these almost have seeds in them. You do have to consider inviting other pests though that want to come eat these seeds. Usually these are birds though. Birds might come in and that can be helpful.
For the broccoli.
They might grab snails and stuff too. They're not full seeds yet, but these are the seed pods.
I see.
So that's a whole another topic is seed saving. As far as we wouldn't be saving brassicas from here because we have ones that could cross and it wouldn't be the same variety. But peas are safe to save. The favas will be safe to save, and bush beans. Like I'm picturing you guys growing a lot of bush beans here in the warm season because they did so well. But they're, yeah. So yeah, seed saving
You
is.
guys know about the life cycle of the aphid and the ant and the wasp and the ladybug? Do you understand that relationship?
Ladybug.
So ants they farm aphids because the aphids leave that nectar, the honeydew or whatever that they like. And ants also bring other diseases. Like I can tell that this fava bee might have something else going on with it.
Yeah.
And so they can bring mosaic, they can bring scale, they can bring all kinds of things that can distress the plant. So we try to recognize when we have ants to start, but then when the ants usually precede the aphids, so you're like, it's gonna be aphid season now because I already saw my ants, right? The thing about the aphids is, yeah, it's a bad thing because it stresses the plant out. They suck basically, they're sucking creatures, so they're sucking the life out of the plant. And so you'll see the plant, the leaves curl like that because they feel like something's on them, sucking them. They're trying to decrease their square footage for getting chewed. If we don't have enough aphid population, then we can't attract those beneficial bugs that we want. We can buy them and we can try to put them out here like you have with the ladybugs. But have you noticed whether the ladybugs are staying around or not?
Not out here. Not as much.
Not as much. So it's a little. Sometimes it's wise to leave what we call a trap crop somewhere and just let the situation happen in that situation. Just let the aphids go on this, and that way they'll avoid other things. We call it a trap crop. Nasturtiums are used for that. Sometimes people will plant nasturtiums in the bed, let them cascade out. They're beautiful. They have the edible leaves and the edible flowers, and they're like an aphid trap crop. But just understanding the life cycle of these bugs and how some are beneficial and some aren't. If you try to eradicate the problem by spraying it all off, sometimes it's better to let some sort of biology happen instead. So I just wanted to mention that.
I want to show you guys a couple more things out here, all related to.
Purple Mizuna.
Yeah. There's a few here and there. I'm kind of waiting to see them pick up. These are our watermelon radishes. So again, back to considering your variety that you planted. The daikons did pretty well not being thinned, especially the Cincinnati
Red.
The others, the standard white daikon and the China rose, showed that they wanted to be thinned. So we came through when last time we harvested and thinned. These are the watermelon radishes, so they have to. So the ones that kind of like the beets that are going to get big and round, they need that space. I would most likely pinch them as opposed to pull them, so you're not disturbing or pulling up the one next to it. That one came up, but sometimes I'll go with the little scissor, or when they're still small enough, you can pinch them and leave. I think these want almost 4 inches.
Yeah. Super yummy.
So yeah, there's that, and that's why we've seen when we planted, sometimes it is worth the time to go one by one. But the benefit of over planting is we know we have things coming and munching too. So we're making up for that. And then we can come thin once they're strong enough. The carrots are gonna need to be thin. They're pretty small still, but once they have those true leaves, like you guys are used to knowing to decide when to transplant, you can start thinning them. Same thing, it's better to snip. It's very tedious. So you can let them get bigger and then start pulling the really skinny, smaller carrots and then allowing them to get bigger after that. That a lot of the time is easier and less time consuming. I do want to show you the calendula half seeds.
I just want to mention one thing too. With the sometimes when a plant is stressed and it's in its seeding stage, if the plant's still surviving, sometimes those seeds are actually stronger. So they're worth saving because they've adapted. So they're a highly adaptable seed that is in the same environment that if you reseed it next year, it's going to do better. So that's another reason to consider leaving a stressed plant to attract the proper pollinators, but also give you the seeds that are stronger.
That's probably why volunteer tomatoes are the strongest, best, everything, because they got through it all on their own.
Calendula, it's right there.
Yeah. Looks like these got snipped off, which is totally fine. So again, you can decide, because I know we were doing deadheading with the marigolds.
Yes.
So earlier in the season, you could be deadheading everything. That way you keep getting flowers. And then later on, you think again, okay, how much have I taken? Maybe I'll let it flower now, and they'll start getting seeds. So these are going to be the seeds once they dry. They turn brown and they'll dry. Is what those are?
The calendula, what they look like, with flowers.
Yeah. And if they have like lots of flowers.
Yes.
That one was so funky with the little something out the middle. You could be using these too, whether you're using the petals for edible flowers or to make something from, make like a salve or a
Great for
tincture
eczema,
from.
I've learned.
Yeah, super good. These are doing so nice. I did want to look at this bed that's impacted to talk about how to decide. You know, we've learned in the channels and in our beds how important it is to maintain the rhizosphere. So we're not just like, okay, it's a new season, we're gonna replant this, rip it all out and start fresh. That looks good at first, but I know we've learned how important it is to build the soil and be feeding the soil life. So this bed, even though these onions have been in here quite a bit of time, I'd probably still transplant them and if I have a place, I'd find a place into looser soil. This morning I came and I chopped down all of the mustard in here, had powdery mildew. Again, a seasonal thing. It's been wet, then it was warm. But also it's just all roots, which isn't bad. That means everything in here is working together. But for something bulbing or something that needs a lot of nutrition, these broccoli, they can't get it. I came through with a broad fork. That's what these holes are after the rain when it was really wet. So that helped. But I'd probably, if I wanted to get onions out of these, I'd transplant them. Or I might loosen the soil more, like take a digging knife and cut through these roots, but I'd rather not do that. I'd rather keep that all working together. These have aphids, the celery, so uncovering them should help, exposing them to more sunlight. They were covered in mustard leaves still this morning, and I sprayed them off like you've been doing with the with the hose, but I use this. It was kind of dry in here because of the
Show me how
root
you did that.
impaction. It was just soaking it all up.
This is
I
called a
took the
goof plug.
off,
A
and
goof
I
plug.
ran this
You
just to
kinda
make
just
sure it was
wiggle it off?
watering well, and I sprayed.
And she opened, or she, did you run the?
Yes, I had it running because we're like,
And
let's
she-
do a check. This soil's kind of dry.
But if you do that a lot, you can stress out this tip.
Yeah.
And then what happens when the temperature changes is this is already
Expands.
starting to stress and it.
It'll
Yeah,
pop
it'll
out.
snap off.
So
Yeah.
it's not, you know.
For
Yeah.
heat. Yeah. That's
what-
something
it's
you shouldn't teach us.
It's
that
one of
then.
the lazy things we do.
I was also flushing it. Was the
Yeah,
initial.
that's true.
I was flushing it to see like why is this soil so
Yeah.
dry. So that's another thing to remember. Like when we're doing supplemental water, like last week it was hot, so doing extra water was good. Also the beds are set just every other day right now because they were so wet last week. So always checking before doing that how the soil looks, because even if it's hot, the soil might still be beautiful.
And you can sometimes taste the compaction, you know? Like I just had a pea and I noticed it was a little bit woody already. It's not as tender, and you can see at the base where all the powdery mildew is there. So
Yes.
that's a sign that maybe it's because of the rain and everything. And just the water going through it, and the irrigation can also compact and take the air out. So
We're also
Impressive.
planted really close to the side
side.
because we wanted to reach the trellis.
yeah.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out why these in particular have such bad powdery mildew. It's also the variety, maybe. As I know you guys, when we got here last year, you guys had that one, and it was all powdery mildew. So maybe that's not another thing to take note of. I think we have a note. I know we do on the seeding calendar that I've been using, and I finally shared with you. Like I think like 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you saw it or not, but I think your seed inventory thing, but somewhere to put a note on that seed variety, so you know you might not want to grow it
Do
again.
you have your seeds real quick? Can I look at that seed packet real quick? Because the seeds themselves will give you clues as to whether or not they're frost resistant or powdery mildew
MTO,
resistant
yeah.
and all of that. So you can look there.
Mosaic virus resistant.
They actually have little acronyms like, I don't know, TMV or whatever.
Yeah.
And that means this and that means that.
All of- yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, we
it
learn
doesn't
all-
say it on here.
For that stuff a bit in the processing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that as you grow more and more things, like you've done in the channels, you figure like, oh, the top of your spinach didn't do well here, or this one I think is little marble. Like, you know what, I got powdery mildew really bad. It definitely seems like one too that would be better just to eat the peas. It's not a tender like snap pea. So you can take note of those things. And I've been doing that too with if they germinated well. So I put in the little notes for germination. Forget about it, like the ones, the San Diego Seed Company ones.
Yeah. Right.
But you know, your soil is a moving target, and so is the seed, right? So if you were to leave those peas on the vine and harvest them, save them, and use them, that seed has gotten stronger because it's adapted. And then as your soil is growing, you're basically improving your soil every time you amend it or aerate it or add things to it to create different rhizosphere with different varieties. The same variety could very well do better the next year or even the year after that because of those things. So it's not to say that you shouldn't use it ever, like, oh, that's a bad variety for our space, but maybe skip a year. Skip it, you know.
Yeah. What else we had? Wanted to avoid sowing seeds in the heat and the dry weather. So like today, we don't really have a lot of space right now because we did a good job planting, but today would be like a perfect day to plant seeds, knowing that we might get some rain or at least it's going to be cloudy and cool. But if we knew, like, was it last week we had the heat wave, it'd be silly to sow seeds. They do okay, but it would not be.
It's interesting because you think,
Especially
that,
carrots.
you know, when Alyssa and I were talking about this lesson, we were talking about how, you think when the soil warms, that's a perfect time to start planting, right? But it doesn't like it really hot. Nothing likes to be out in the baking heat, especially not a tiny little seed. As much as we try to cover that seed with peat moss or castings or whatever, it's still just kind of, all the goodness gets kind of baked. And so, yeah,
I think when we hear that, you hear all the time when the soil is warm in the spring, that's for not the Southwest. That's for everywhere except here.
It's for trees.
Yeah, where their soil was actually frozen for months, sort of thing, so they can finally go out. And for us, we can't do that. So yeah, it's best to see what growers in true deserts are doing. Is kind of best advice for our region. What else? I know we were talking about seeds under pressure.
It's so great that you guys have the microgreens down because so much of what's going on there can be translated here. You know, the pressure aspect of how a seed likes to grow under pressure and how you use the trays to create that pressure in the blocks. Knowing about spacing and realizing that when you leave too much space, what happens in the microgreen tray can also happen here. So use your knowledge there and allow it to inform your practice here.
Yeah, and the true leaves and the cotyledons. You guys already had all that down, so that's why I wanted to review. I'm seeing if I'm missing anything else because I think that we covered all of that. If you like, we can look at more. I know I showed you just one-on-one yesterday with when to decide when to transplant things or to let it go, and how we just looked at those. We can look at those lettuces. Another thing we can continue to do that I'm okay with though is use older lettuces. Anything else I would compost, but we have found that some of those lettuces that have been in the trays longer than they should did okay putting out in the garden when we have space and we don't have anything else. So especially these like seasonal transition times, we want to keep the soil covered and it working underneath. So we could grab some older lettuces. We did that quite a bit and it turned out really well. It didn't work for, like, I don't know what these spinaches are going to do. The older, small, stressed broccolis and cabbages, they didn't make it, or the snails came through and got them. But I think it's worth using the lettuces for that still, for sure.
Lettuces tend to blouse out too and create that living mulch to really kind of give you quick coverage because they're a quick crop.
I also really like bringing the worm tea microbes over here too.
Yeah.
Keep that going.
Yeah. Do you guys know how to save a seed?
Let it dry out.
Yeah, let it dry out. And it's some of the things like that have flowers on top. So like the broccoli yellow flowers. Sometimes if you let it dry out and you put it in a paper bag upside down, the seeds will fall out of the thing, and then you'll have a nice little puddle of seeds on the bag.
Yeah, the brassicas work well like that. The lettuce works well like that. The peas and the beans, you'll want to let them dry on the vine. Like, I think you saw that before when you guys had peas before. And some of them were there. Yeah, I can't think of a lot more, but if you want, we can do a little bit more at the germination chamber.
Okay.
In the greenhouse if you want.
Yes.
And when you've germinated things, like if you were trying to have this survive, I don't know if there's the tube's close, but you know, I always think to plant close to the tube for irrigation, just to increase the likelihood that they're going to survive. Plant it closer to the tube. That way you know, and to an emitter. You know, that way you know that it'll germinate because it'll get delivery of water.
Oh yeah, for the germination. Yeah, these were the seedlings, and it was rainy season, but yeah, it's just all roots in there. So like I said, I would transplant these around more. We'll see. We can see this tomorrow.
Celery
next
has
week,
really
we have
vigorous
more.
roots, and that's a lot of celery.
Yeah, and it was all the mustard.
Oh,
On their own, they're okay, but it was all the mustard. Yeah, we can move those around so we can
Huge
get more
canopy.
onions. Like these ones look pretty good, right?
Oh yeah,
I thin them and space them all properly, so they're actually starting to
come up and
become
bolt.
onions. Yeah, they look good. You could also see doing a little fish emulsion at this stage. And some of these, like you guys have learned about the heavy feeders, it wasn't just that the seedling wasn't as strong as it could have been. but these beds had already given a lot, and even though we did a top dressing, they'd given a lot, they'd grown a lot, and then what was growing around them had an effect like on the size plants we were getting. And Yvette and I were kind of seeing the other day where full-size broccolis did well, how we spaced them, what we planted them with versus other ones that stayed smaller. That's important to start taking note of too as you continue to do like the way we taught you. All the inner planning methods. I'm trying to think. What those ones? Oh, I think just our spacing was better. Yeah, there's just less in here than this one where they all stayed smaller. This bed was really packed. And this one had better spacing.
Yeah, I think.
So I wanted to mention quick on the sweet potatoes that you don't have to worry about germination on sweet potatoes. If you just leave one sweet potato in that container, it will just keep coming back.
Yeah.
And the leaves are a viable crop.
Mm-hmm.
You can
Wait.
figure out how to keep them fresh enough when you distribute them. Smooth me down when they're nice and fresh to buy them, but if you defoliated it and took all the leaves and still left some of the tubers in there, you would have sweet potatoes in these containers forever.
Yeah, they'll probably keep going. The ones that I germinated I propagated by slips. So the ones I brought in that had roots and we planted, they filled in the beds beautifully. And then the ones where I just did cuttings, stuck them right in the beds, it's been slower going.
Yeah.
So you guys have got to see that. It's also the season. When we planted the ones with the roots, it was still warmer. And it was starting to slow down a little with those ones. So let's peek in there. I don't have like a full on